Hi, it's Carter Clues of ConstitutionalRightsPack.com, CRPAC, with an update. I promise you I bring you continual updates on this crisis in Russia, the Russian-U.S. relations, because of the horrifying, heinous terrorist attack in Moscow. And that's what I'm doing right now. I just heard a former top CIA operative, very high ranked, say that I'm just repeating him, so I don't want the alphabet agencies in Washington to come knocking down my door, guns blazing at 6 in the morning. This top former CIA operative said that the massacre, the terrorist massacre in Moscow, is the worst catastrophe for the CIA since the Bay of Pigs. Just telling you what he said. Just telling you what he said. This is a guy who was very high up in the CIA, may well know of what he speaks, And of course, we already know the U.S. cover story is completely falling apart, okay? Completely falling apart. The idea that these guys were ISIS operatives, nonsense. At best, they were ISIS hirees, okay? Very stupid ISIS hirees. Had none of the earmarks of fanatical Muslims, none whatsoever. From the way they arrived, white Renault. There aren't a lot of white Renaults in Russia and Moscow, which made it kind of easy to track. To the fact they didn't go down with the ship, which is shouting Allah Akbar, to the fact they headed for the Ukrainian border, not even realizing they were being tracked. They had their cell phones, not the earmarks of a sophisticated ISIS operation. So forget the ISIS cover story, folks. Just forget it. Just forget it. Maybe hired through ISIS, some payoffs going around, but more and more it points to Ukraine, where they were headed, where we're told Russia now knows from the messages on the phones that the reception had been set up for them, an opening in the border to bring them in, and they're with their Ukrainian handlers there. It gets uglier and uglier. It simply does. There is nothing about the story that lends any credence whatsoever to the cover story the United States government is trying to provide itself. These people were trained in how to do this by somebody. The idea that we immediately, before any information was unannounced, well, it's not that horrible Kirby, the Biden spokesperson, who is just simply a transparent, inveterate liar. One of the worst I've ever seen in over 40 years in Washington. That's saying something. Saying, well, one thing we know, it wasn't the Russians. He gets that little head shake. If they're the Ukrainians, it gets that head shake. Keep in mind, in Putin's statement, he mentioned Ukraine 4 times, including the reference that they caught him heading for the Ukrainian border. So that wasn't accidental. Last night they started taking out Ukrainian intelligence offices that they had not hit before, the offices that would have helped coordinate a terrorist attack like this. And the state-controlled media is saying, well, why would Ukraine wouldn't have any advantage to doing it? Yeah, they would. They've lost the war. As I have said for 2 years, they would lose the war, while Kirby and Joe Biden, Russians losing, Joe Biden told us over and over. This war is over, Mr. Putin has lost, Biden said over and over. No, this war was lost the minute that the United States launched the war. Way back in 2014, when it violated the Minsk agreements twice, when it staged the color revolution in Maidan. Victoria Nuland, again, that evil, vile person, when they threw out the duly elected president of the country and installed a CIA puppet. But it's been lost ever since they did all that, okay? And so now the war, it's obvious to everybody now it's lost, including the Ukrainians, so now they've turned to terrorism. And don't forget, they've launched terrorist attacks on Russian cities. They've launched other terrorist attacks on Moscow with their drones. So this is nothing new, except in degree, the horror of it. It's their pattern. It's kind of, I call it kind of the Samson syndrome. If I'm going to go down, I'm going to pull the building down with me, okay? And maybe they're out of control. Maybe when Nuland, and evidence looks like Nuland had a hand in this. Remember, she said, we're going to give a nasty little surprise to Putin. And then she made it further. She said an asymmetric, nasty surprise. Asymmetric, of course, being terrorism, non-conventional warfare. So that's where we are. That's where we are on this. Watch it continue to unfold. Remember, as Scott Ritter has pointed out, I just watched an interview with him. Larry Johnson has said the same thing. McGovern, former CIA top executive. Putin has the telephones. He has all the information. He has the perpetrators who are singing like songbirds, okay? So this cover-up will not work. It simply will not work. And I think I think it has been traced back to Zelensky. I would not, if I were Zelensky, Budanov, the head of their secret police, if I were those two guys, I wouldn't get in any cars. I wouldn't fly in any planes. I wouldn't walk the dog around the block, okay? Because Putin, Medvedev, Putin's number 2 guy, have made clear we're going after everybody that did this to our people. Everybody. And you know what? There are some U.S. operatives that I wouldn't walk the dog either if I were you, okay? So that's where we are. Watch it unfold. Hopefully, the U.S., France, the failed NATO nations will finally just back off and say, we lost, we tried to take over, we tried to make Ukraine a total puppet state and destroy Russia, cause a color revolution there. We failed. It's time for us to back off. Pray to God they do. Pray to God they do.